Life was good, or at least I thought it was. My name is Mark, and I had spent the last 10 years building a life with my wife, Sarah. We lived in a cozy little house in a quiet neighborhood, where the sounds of children playing and the rustling of leaves filled the air. Our mornings were usually filled with laughter, coffee brewing, and the occasional argument over whose turn it was to take out the trash. We had our routines, and I found comfort in the predictability of it all. Sarah was the love of my life. I still remember the day we met at a mutual friend's party. She was radiant, her laughter infectious, and her smile lit up the room. We clicked instantly, and what started as a casual conversation quickly blossomed into something deeper. We had shared dreams, ambitions, and a mutual love for adventure. Traveling together, exploring new places, and creating memories were our favorite pastimes. I believed that love was a fortress we had built together, strong and unwavering. But looking back, I realized that I had been blind to the cracks forming in that fortress. In the months leading up to the revelation of her infidelity, there had been signs, subtle yet significant. The late nights became more frequent, with Sarah often claiming she was working late at the office. I would sit alone at the dining table, staring at the empty chair across from me, wondering if I was losing her to the demands of her job. She had become secretive about her phone, often smiling at messages and quickly changing the screen whenever I entered the room. I brushed off my suspicions as paranoia, convincing myself that I was overthinking things. After all, Sarah had always been the trustworthy type, the one I could count on. Our friends often commented on how well we balanced each other. I was the steady, grounded one, while she was the free spirit, always ready to embrace life's spontaneity. I admired her adventurous nature and thought it was what made our relationship so vibrant. But as the months passed, I began to feel a growing distance between us. It was as if an invisible wall had been erected, and I was on the outside looking in. I tried to bridge that gap, planning romantic evenings and surprise getaways, but they often fell flat. Sarah seemed distracted, her mind elsewhere, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. As I reflect on those days, I realize that I should have trusted my instincts. The signs were there, but I had chosen to ignore them, hoping that the love we had built would be enough to weather any storm. I never imagined that the storm would come from within our own home, from the very woman I had pledged my life to. In those moments of blissful ignorance, I felt secure in our love. I had no idea that my world was about to come crashing down, and that the foundations of my trust would be tested in ways I could never have anticipated. Little did I know, the man who would become the catalyst for my heartbreak was a firefighter, a protector who had somehow become my greatest adversary. As I stood there, oblivious to the impending chaos, I could never have imagined the emotional turmoil that awaited me. The quiet before the storm was about to give way to a tempest of betrayal, anger, and revenge. I was about to learn the hard way that love can be both a sanctuary and a battlefield. It was a Tuesday evening when everything changed. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow through the kitchen window as I prepared dinner. I hummed softly to myself, the smell of garlic and herbs filling the air. Sarah was supposed to be home early that day, she had promised. But as the minutes ticked by, I found myself glancing at the clock more frequently, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. Finally, just as I was about to call her, Sarah walked through the door, a flurry of energy and laughter. She was animated as she entered, her cheeks flushed and her hair slightly disheveled. "Hey, babe, sorry I'm late, work was insane today." Her voice was bright, but there was something off about her demeanor. I brushed it aside, chalking it up to her usual hectic schedule. We sat down to eat and I tried to engage her in conversation, asking about her day. But she seemed distracted, her mind clearly elsewhere. I noticed her phone buzzing on the table, and she picked it up almost immediately, her expression shifting to one of guardedness as she read a message. I felt a pang of irritation but kept my mouth shut, suppressing the urge to question her about it. After dinner, as we moved to the living room, I caught a glimpse of her phone screen. It was a message from a contact I didn't recognize, a name that sent a chill down my spine: Jake. I tried to shake off the feeling of dread creeping in, but it was too late. My instincts were screaming at me. Later that night, after Sarah had gone to bed, I found myself lying awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I recalled the late nights, the secretive behavior, and the way she had been acting lately. My heart raced as I imagined the worst. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know the truth. I got out of bed and quietly tiptoed into the living room where her phone lay charging. It felt wrong, but the need for answers overpowered my guilt. I picked it up, my hands trembling, and unlocked it with the passcode I had memorized. The screen lit up, and my heart sank as I scrolled through her messages. What I found was a chilling confirmation of my worst fears. There were exchanges filled with flirtation, inside jokes, and plans to meet. "Can't wait to see you again," one message read. My stomach churned as I read the words, each one cutting deeper than the last. And there it was, a message from Jake, the firefighter. It was a simple photo of him in uniform, smiling with the caption, "Thinking of you, beautiful." My breath caught in my throat, and I felt the world around me spin. I stumbled back to our bedroom, my heart pounding as I tried to process what I had just learned. The woman I loved, the woman I had trusted with my heart, was having an affair with a man who was supposed to protect and serve. I was engulfed in a tidal wave of emotions: shock, anger, betrayal. When Sarah woke up in the morning, I confronted her. I could barely contain the rage boiling inside me. "Who is Jake?" I demanded, my voice barely above a whisper. Her face paled, and in that moment I saw the realization wash over her. She knew her secret was out. "What are you talking about?" She stammered, feigning ignorance, but the look in her eyes betrayed her. I held up her phone, the damning evidence glaring back at her. "Who is he, Sarah?" Her defenses crumbled and the tears began to flow. "Mark, I can explain. It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen," she pleaded, but I couldn't listen. The words felt like daggers, each one cutting deeper into my heart. "A mistake? You're in love with him, aren't you?" I spat, my voice rising in anger. "How could you do this to us?" The pain was overwhelming, and I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of her betrayal. She tried to justify her actions, claiming that we had grown apart, that she was seeking something she felt was missing in our marriage. Her excuses only fueled my rage. I felt humiliated, betrayed by the very person I had built my life with. As I stood there, watching her break down, I realized that my world was crumbling around me. The trust we had built over the years was shattered, and I was left standing in the ruins of our love, wondering how we had ended up here. I had always believed that love could conquer all, but now I was faced with the harsh reality that sometimes love is not enough. In that moment of raw emotion, I made a decision that would change everything. I would not let this go unpunished. I would expose her affair, not just to her, but to the firefighters' department. They would know what kind of man they were dealing with, and she would feel the weight of her betrayal. The plan began to form in my mind, fueled by a mix of anger and a desperate need for retribution. I felt a dark satisfaction as I envisioned the humiliation she would face. This was no longer just about me. It was about making sure she and he understood the consequences of their actions. The days following the confrontation were a blur of emotions: anger, sadness, and a gnawing sense of betrayal that consumed me. I barely spoke to Sarah, and when I did, it was like talking to a stranger. The love we once shared felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the reality of her infidelity. I knew I had to do something, something that would give me a sense of power in a situation where I felt utterly powerless. I spent hours packing around our home, replaying the moments of our life together, searching for the meaning behind it all. I was filled with questions. How could she betray me like this? Did she ever truly love me? What did he have that I did? The anger began to morph into a cold resolve, a determination to take control of the narrative that had spiraled out of my hands. It was during one of those sleepless nights that the idea struck me. I would expose Sarah's affair to the firefighters' department. The thought of it sent a rush of adrenaline coursing through my veins. It wasn't just about punishing her. It was about making sure Jake felt the consequences of his actions too. He had taken something precious from me, and I wanted him to know that he couldn't just walk away unscathed. I began to craft my plan meticulously. I knew that the firefighters' department was a tight-knit community, and word would spread quickly. I envisioned the scene, Jake, surrounded by his colleagues, the camaraderie that came with their profession, only to be blindsided by the truth. I imagined the looks on their faces as they learned about the affair, the whispers that would follow him, the shame he would carry. It was a twisted fantasy, but it felt empowering to think that I could turn the tables, to take back some semblance of control. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this was not just revenge. It was my way of reclaiming my dignity. Sarah had stripped me of that, and I refused to let her or Jake think they could get away with it. I wanted them to feel the weight of their choices, to understand that actions have consequences. I began to gather information about the department. I learned about their meetings, their social gatherings, and the events they held. I realized it would be easiest to expose them at a charity event that was scheduled for the following month, a gathering that would draw many of the firefighters, their families, and the community. It was the perfect setting for my plan. I decided to create an anonymous email. It would be a simple message, devoid of any emotional outburst, detailing the affair in a straightforward manner. I wanted it to be as clinical as possible, devoid of my pain, so that it would come off as a matter-of-fact revelation rather than a personal vendetta. I crafted the message carefully, making sure to include details that would leave no doubt about the truth. As I typed, I felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. Would this really make me feel better? Part of me worried that I was sinking to a level I never thought I would reach. But the anger was more potent than any guilt I felt. I wanted them to know that I had been wronged, that I was still standing, and that I wouldn't be a silent victim in this scenario. After a few nights of drafting and redrafting, I finally hit send. As I watched the email disappear into the digital ether, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. It was done. I had taken the first step toward executing my plan, and there was no turning back now. I had chosen this path, and I was prepared to face whatever consequences came my way. In the days that followed, I became a spectator of my own life. I watched Sarah as she tried to salvage what was left of our marriage, but I was no longer invested. In her attempts, I felt a sense of detachment, as if I were observing a play that I had no part in. I saw the guilt etched on her face, the way she would glance at her phone, perhaps waiting for a message from Jake, but I couldn't bring myself to care. The day of the charity event arrived, and I felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. I knew it was only a matter of time before the truth would come crashing down around them. As I prepared to attend the event, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I had made my decision, and now it was time to see it through. As I entered the venue, I looked around at the smiling faces of the firefighters and their families. They were blissfully unaware of the storm about to hit them. My heart raced as I spotted Jake across the room, laughing with his colleagues. I could feel the tension building inside me, a potent blend of anger and satisfaction. I had done what I set out to do, and now all I could do was wait for the fallout. The clock was ticking, and I was ready to witness the moment when everything would change. The atmosphere at the charity event was electric. Laughter and chatter filled the air as families mingled, children ran around, and the smell of barbecue wafted through the venue. As I walked through the crowd, I felt a mix of exhilaration and anxiety coursing through me. I had set this in motion, and now I was about to watch the pieces fall into place. I spotted Sarah across the room, her laughter ringing out as she spoke with some friends. She looked radiant, blissfully unaware of the impending storm. My heart clenched at the sight of her, a reminder of what I had lost. But the anger surged back, reminding me of why I was there. I focused on Jake, who was standing with a group of firefighters, his confident demeanor a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside me. As the event progressed, I kept an eye on the clock, waiting for the right moment to make my move. I had already arranged for the email I sent to be forwarded to the department's chief, knowing he would take it seriously. The chief was known for his no-nonsense approach and commitment to integrity, and I was counting on him to act swiftly. Finally, just as the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the gathering, I saw the chief make his way to the stage. The crowd hushed as he took the microphone, and my heart raced. This was it. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I leaned forward, eager to hear the words that would change everything. "Ladies and gentlemen," the chief began, his voice steady but serious. "I have something important to address. Recently, I received an anonymous tip regarding a serious breach of trust within our department." He paused, scanning the crowd. I could see the confusion and concern on everyone's faces. "It has come to my attention that one of our firefighters has been involved in an extramarital affair with a married woman." A murmur swept through the audience, and I felt a sense of satisfaction wash over me. I knew they were all thinking of who it could be, and I couldn't help but relish the moment. I glanced at Sarah, who looked pale, her smile fading as realization dawned on her. The chief continued, "I won't divulge names at this moment, but I want to remind everyone that our actions reflect not only on ourselves, but on our families and our community. We have a duty to uphold the highest standards of integrity." I felt the tension in the room rise as whispers erupted among the guests. The chief paused again, and I could see him searching the crowd for Jake. "If you are involved in this situation, I urge you to come forward and take responsibility. We will handle this internally, but I will not tolerate dishonesty within our ranks." And then, it happened. Jake's face turned ashen as he realized the implications of the chief's words. I could see the gears turning in his head as he began to piece together the situation. My heart raced as I watched him take a step back, his colleagues glancing at him with confusion and concern. It was a beautiful moment of poetic justice. I reveled in the thought that he was about to face the consequences of his actions, just as I had. I could only imagine the humiliation he must have felt, standing there with everyone's eyes on him. As Jake's face twisted with shame, Sarah's expression morphed into one of horror. She had finally understood that the web of lies she had spun was unraveling before her eyes. I watched as she frantically scanned the crowd, her gaze landing on me. In that moment, I felt a sense of vindication. I was no longer the victim. I was the one holding the cards. The chief continued, "I expect anyone involved to step forward, and if not, we will be conducting an investigation." With that, he stepped off the stage, leaving a charged atmosphere in his wake. The crowd buzzed with speculation, and I could see the tension mounting as Jake's colleagues turned to him, their expressions a mix of confusion and disappointment. I moved through the crowd, feeling the weight of the moment. I overheard snippets of conversations, people piecing together the puzzle, speculation swirling about who the married woman could be. I could feel the eyes on Jake, the judgment, the whispers, a reality he would have to face for a long time. And then, it happened. Jake, unable to bear the weight of the scrutiny, turned on his heel and stormed out of the venue. The murmurs intensified as people began to realize what was happening. I watched as Sarah, her face a mask of panic, rushed after him. I could see the desperation in her eyes. She was scrambling to salvage whatever shred of dignity she had left. In that moment, I felt a mix of satisfaction and something else. Was it pity? I had wanted this moment of exposure, but seeing her chase after him, I couldn't help but feel the sting of the situation. It was a reminder of the love we once had, now reduced to a chaotic mess of betrayal and shame. As I stood there, surrounded by a crowd buzzing with gossip, I realized that I had achieved what I set out to do. But at what cost? I had exposed their affair, but the fallout was far-reaching. I was left standing amidst the wreckage, wondering if this was truly a victory or just a hollow triumph. The line between revenge and justice had blurred, and I was left to ponder the consequences of my actions. The days following the charity event felt surreal. I had executed my plan, and Jake's exposure had sent shockwaves through the firefighters department and beyond. News traveled fast in our small town, and soon everyone had heard about the affair. I became a reluctant spectator to the fallout, watching as Sarah and Jake's lives unraveled in the wake of my actions. In the immediate aftermath, I found myself in a whirlwind of emotions. There was satisfaction in knowing that Sarah had faced consequences for her betrayal, but it was accompanied by a heavy sense of loss. My marriage was in tatters, and the love we had built over the years felt irreparable. I had sought revenge, but I hadn't fully considered the impact it would have on my own life. Sarah and I had an awkward conversation a few days later. She came home, her eyes puffy from crying, and sat across from me at the dining table. I could see the shame etched on her face, the realization of what her actions had cost her. "Mark, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I never wanted it to come to this. I made a terrible mistake." Her apology felt hollow, a desperate attempt to mend the unbreakable. "A mistake?" I echoed, my voice rising. "You didn't just make a mistake, Sarah. You chose to betray me. You chose him." The hurt and betrayal surged back, and I felt the anger bubbling to the surface once more. "I know," she replied, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I was feeling lost, and I thought I could find something I was missing. I never meant to hurt you." "But you did," I shot back, my voice thick with emotion. "You shattered my trust. You turned our life into a lie. And for what? A fleeting moment of excitement." I could see the weight of my words land on her, and for a moment I felt a flicker of empathy. But it was quickly extinguished by the anger still simmering within me. "I'm willing to do anything to fix this," she pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right." I could see the desperation in her eyes, but I was torn. Part of me wanted to believe that we could rebuild, but another part of me felt that the damage was too great. The trust that had once been the foundation of our relationship had crumbled, and I wasn't sure I could ever see her the same way again. In the days that followed, I found myself reflecting on what had happened. I had sought revenge, but it didn't fill the void left by her betrayal. Instead, it created a chasm between us that felt insurmountable. I had reduced our love to a battlefield, and now I was left standing in the ruins, unsure of how to proceed. Friends and family reached out to me, expressing their shock and sympathy. Some praised my decision to expose the affair, while others questioned whether it was the right thing to do. Their opinions only added to my confusion. I had been so consumed by my desire for revenge that I hadn't considered the long-term consequences of my actions. As I navigated the fallout, I began to feel a sense of guilt creeping in. Had I gone too far? Had I sacrificed my own dignity in the pursuit of revenge? I realized that I had become so focused on punishing Sarah and Jake that I hadn't taken the time to consider what I truly wanted. Did I want my marriage back, or was I simply seeking closure? One evening, after a long day of contemplation, I found myself sitting on the porch staring at the stars. The quiet of the night allowed my thoughts to settle. I realized that I needed to make a choice, not just for Sarah but for myself. I had to decide what kind of life I wanted to lead moving forward. The next day I called Sarah into the living room. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady. She sat down, her eyes filled with apprehension. "I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened, and I need to be honest with you." I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "I can't pretend that everything is okay. You broke my trust, and I don't know if I can ever fully forgive you. But I also realize that I don't want to keep living in this limbo. We need to decide if we can move forward together or if it's time to part ways." Sarah nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I understand. I'll accept whatever you decide. I just want you to know that I'm truly sorry." As I looked into her eyes, I felt the weight of our shared history, the love that once flourished between us, and the pain that had driven us apart. I knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but I also understood that I had the power to choose my own path. In that moment, I realized that revenge had not brought me peace. It had only deepened the wounds. I had the opportunity to either rebuild our relationship or walk away and start anew. It was a decision I would need to make, one that would shape the future of my life and my understanding of love, trust, and forgiveness. The decision hung in the air like a thick fog, obscuring the path ahead. As I sat across from Sarah, I realized that whatever choice I made would not only affect her but would also shape my own future. I had spent so much time focused on revenge and retribution that I had forgotten to consider what I truly wanted for myself. After a long silence, I finally spoke. "I think we need to take a break, not just from each other but from everything. I need time to figure out what I want, and you need time to reflect on what you've done." Her eyes widened in shock, and I could see the pain wash over her face, but I held firm. "This isn't about punishing you. It's about finding clarity." Sarah nodded slowly, her expression a mixture of understanding and sorrow. I can respect that. I'll give you the space you need. But please know that I'm committed to making amends if you decide to give us another chance. I appreciated her willingness to accept my decision, but deep down, I knew that it wouldn't be easy for either of us. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. I moved through life like a ghost, caught between the past and an uncertain future. I began to seek solace in self-reflection, spending time alone, rediscovering my interests and focusing on my own well-being. I took long walks, often ending up at the park where we used to go together. I would sit on a bench, watching families play and couples laugh, and I realized how much I missed the simple joys of life. I started to journal my thoughts, pouring out my feelings onto the pages. Writing became a therapeutic outlet, allowing me to process the pain and confusion swirling inside me. During this time, I also sought support from friends and family. I opened up about what had happened, and their encouragement helped me gain perspective. They reminded me that I was not alone, and that I had the strength to navigate this tumultuous chapter of my life. As weeks passed, I began to notice a shift within myself. The anger that had fueled my need for revenge started to dissipate, replaced by a sense of acceptance. I realized that while Sarah's betrayal had hurt me deeply, it didn't have to define me. I could choose to move forward, whether that meant rebuilding my life with her or embarking on a new journey alone. Eventually, I reached out to Sarah. We agreed to meet at a cafe, a neutral ground where we could talk openly without the weight of our home hanging over us. As we sat across from each other, I could see the changes in her demeanor. She was calmer, more introspective, and I sensed a genuine desire to understand the impact of her actions. "Mark, I've had a lot of time to think," she began, her voice steady. "I know I hurt you in ways I can't even begin to express. I've been working on myself, trying to understand why I made the choices I did. I want to be better, not just for you, but for myself." I listened, my heart heavy but open. "I appreciate that, Sarah. I've been doing a lot of thinking too. I've realized that I can't just jump back into what we had. Trust needs to be rebuilt, and that takes time. I'm not sure if I can give you that right now, but I'm willing to try." Her eyes filled with hope, and I could see the determination in her expression. "I understand. I'm committed to doing whatever it takes to earn your trust back. I know it won't happen overnight, but I believe we can work through this together if you're willing." In that moment, I felt a glimmer of possibility. While the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, the prospect of healing, both individually and as a couple, felt attainable. I knew that it wouldn't be easy, but I also understood that love is not just about the good times. It's about navigating the storms together. As we left cafe, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. The journey of rebuilding would take dedication, patience, and understanding from both of us. But I was ready to embrace the challenge, to forge a new path that was rooted in honesty and vulnerability. Looking forward, I knew that this experience had changed me. I had learned that love could be both beautiful and painful, that trust, once broken, requires effort to mend, and that forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves as much as it is a gift we offer others. The future was uncertain, but I felt a renewed sense of strength within me. I was no longer the victim of betrayal. I was a survivor, ready to reclaim my life and explore the depths of love and trust anew. As I stepped into the unknown, I held on to the hope that perhaps, just perhaps, we could emerge from this experience stronger than before. And with that realization, I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next.